Hi, looks like we're recording. Yay.
Yep. Okay.
So we've tried to reach out to Renee. We left her a message and hopefully she will be able to join us later on. Otherwise, we'll review her video if she can post one later this week. So it looks like it's just the two of us for now.
Yep.
So,
You're right. So,
and let's see.
okay. So I was going to say, as I reviewed it, it looks like we're talking about, the first one was talking about our evaluation where we had to make that evaluation up.
Yeah.
And then we talked about,
I think it's ethics. Yeah,
yes.
The personal practices and ethics. Did you get a chance to go to the what is it called? The office hour where she talked about the ethics?
No. And I was so mad because I got up that morning and I'm going, at noon, I've got that to do.
Right.
That to do. And then at 9 o'clock, I pulled it up and I went, oh.
No.
And
yeah, I was double booked that afternoon for visiting teaching and a meeting with my daughter's principal, and so I rescheduled one, and then I went visiting teaching. So I was hoping there would be a recording. So maybe there is.
There is one. I found it.
Is there one? Oh, good.
So if you go onto our content, and it's in the announcements.
Oh, good. Okay. I hadn't had a chance to thoroughly look through this.
But yeah, I did find where she posted that. I'm going, good. I've got to listen to that.
Good. Yeah, I want to listen
to that too.
Right. Because I know that mandated reporting is important, and I want to understand more of the specifics because, like, for me, I don't want to report something unless I have a really strong suspicion or I know, firsthand, not through hearsay. But at the same time, I don't want to not report something that really should be reported,
Right, yeah. And where we are mandated reporters.
Right. I want to understand what exactly that means and what the
right, yeah,
requirements are.
And my understanding is that if you are a mandated reporter and you don't report it, you're in trouble.
Right.
That's my understanding of it.
Right.
So I'm going,
yeah,
better just to report it.
Right. Better safe than sorry, and report it and hopefully get them help.
And hopefully get them the help that they actually need.
Right.
Or, and yet, like you said, I've heard people that have done that and there has been nothing.
Right.
And then it causes
see, I've had false reports filed against my husband's at various points, and so I guess I'm really careful about that because I know the effect that it's had on them to be falsely accused. And so, I mean, I get that people are coming from a place of wanting to help, but at the same time, when it's not really an abuse situation, it was cleared up easily enough just by them talking to me, but it just psychologically, I think it stayed with them. So, I don't know. So I guess that's my thing with wanting to be careful. And I've watched my brother and sister-in-law have a daughter that has OI, which is osteogenesis imperfecta. Her bones broke like super easy when she was a baby. They've treated her since then, but she had 2 broken legs when she was 2 months old. And so of course they were, being investigated and all those things, but they learned through the OI community what documentation they need to keep on her condition and what they're doing to treat it so that they don't get accused of child abuse just because her bones are so brittle they'll break over every little thing. So
so she steps harder.
Right, exactly. Yeah. She jumps too hard or bumps herself too hard somewhere. Thankfully, the treatment that they've got her on has strengthened her bones a lot, so it's not as bad as it used to be. But
Oh, that's good.
But she's like 8 and she's had probably 7 or 8 broken bones already. So, you know, they have to be really careful to maintain proper records so that they don't get in trouble for a genetic disease that their daughter has.
Oh, I know. That's,
So,
you know, and you think about people who have, what is it called, hemophilia, where you touch them
and they
and they
bruise or bleed so
or
easy.
bleed or bruise or something like that. I mean, the same kind of situation.
Right.
You see all these bruises all over this kid and go, and report it when it's actually a medical condition.
Right.
But yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, I need to watch it more. And
Yeah, I want to understand further because I get that abuse is a very serious thing and needs to be reported, and I want to make sure I don't slack on that, and then I report whatever needs to be reported, but I want to understand it better. So I want to, because for me that was one of the biggest ethics things, was understanding what our role is as mandated reporters. So,
right.
and then the last one was like understanding the difference between, or the boundaries between family life education and family therapy.
Right. Yep.
So if we, I don't know if we want to go back and talk a little more about each of those, that'd probably be good.
Okay.
So in chapter 3, it talks about, you know, what is the purpose of program evaluation? I have some thoughts about that, but what are your thoughts about why we do program evaluations?
I think that we do program evaluations so we know, well, first of all, if it's actually effective.
Right.
If you're giving this program over and over and over again and it's not effective and it's not what the people want, why are you doing it?
Right, you're wasting everyone's time, including your own.
Everyone's time, including, you know, yours and theirs.
Right.
So I think that's one of the big keys, is that by evaluating it, it's was it helpful? Was it what you needed?
Mm-hmm.
So that you can meet the needs of the people.
Right.
Which is what we are trying to do.
Right.
Educate and teach the community and the things that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think the hard part though is finding the right evaluation.
Right.
To get you what you want.
Right. I kind of struggled with that. Like, what questions do I ask to get the information that I want?
Yes.
So, one thing that kind of came out of my training that I was doing all last week as I was learning to do workshops and all these things is, especially working with corporations and training in communications there, you want to have the data and the reports, and especially if you're trying to get funded through grants or anything like that, if you have documented, like, these are the results that we get, this is kind of before and after, or this is, you know, if you have something documented that you've collected, then you have data that you can use to show justifying more funding, and it gives you good feedback on, you know, what needs to be changed or what you can do different, what you can do better, how you can be more effective. Right. And so the data collection is actually a really important part of the process of marketing in the future as well. So I hadn't thought about that before, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, even you know, so if you've been at a corporation, and then you can go to someone else and say, hey, they rated this really highly. These are the statistics I have. Can I come to your corporation and do this?
Right. And you can
get your foot in the door.
Right.
Excuse me. Your foot in the door in other places, and you know, getting it out there that this is a good program, you're a good teacher, whatever. Right.
Yeah, just getting it out there that this, you know, this is the results that we had here. You know, these are the problems that you're telling me you have here.
Yeah, or something, yeah.
Right, and this is how we can help, you know. Yeah, but it adds another layer of credibility to what you're saying, and gives you more documentation to back up. So yeah, I think, you know, as much as sometimes we don't want to know, we just kind of want to stick our head in the sand and be like, I hope somebody got something out of that.
Yes.
If we really want to be effective, you know, we need to be willing to receive feedback and be able to tailor it, because we kind of do future audiences a disservice if we don't take the time to really tweak and improve on what we've been doing.
Right. Yeah. So it's a growth experience for us so that we can continue to be the good family educators that we want. Yeah.
Right, and I liked her point that, you know, if we were wondering if we should include something or not in our thing, you know, to ask. This is our opportunity to ask and get feedback from, because obviously they're not paying to be in this course. You know, they're doing it for our learning and benefit. So hopefully they'll be open to, especially if we've connected with them and taught them a lot, hopefully they'll be willing to give us feedback. And one thing that I've kind of learned to do watching these other trainers do it is ask for specific feedback. Be like, you know, it's great if you love this program and you want to give it all, you know, high marks, but if there's anything that really stood out to you or anything that you really appreciated or anything specific you can give me, if you ask for specific feedback, sometimes that can be more helpful. Because I found if people don't ask me for it, I'll be the one that like circles all the 5s or 10s or whatever.
Right. Yes.
You know, and then I don't say anything because I'm like, well, you know, I don't know what to say, so I just don't. But the times when I've had them engage with me and say, you know, it really helps us make this better if you can give us specific feedback, it kind of makes me stop and go, oh, okay, what specifically did I like? And then I do actually give them feedback. And so that might be something to try, you know, letting them know we really will take the feedback that they give us and use it to make things better for other people in the future. And the more specific they could be, the more helpful that would be to us. You know, I think it just kind of encourages people to maybe just pick out 1 or 2 things, or I don't know. I still want to play with my evaluation a little bit before I get the final draft.
Right.
But, you know, I did the one that we had to turn in just so I had something to turn in. And then I was like, I know this isn't like what I want to do for my final draft. So I want to go back and play with it some more and get the final one approved before we get it, you know, actually do the workshop. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah. I did mine pretty good, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to, I wanted him to circle, you know, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I couldn't figure out how to get it to do it on my computer, how to get it to
right
that way. And I'm going, what? And so she said, okay, I'll give you 2 so that you remember to come back and finish this up and figure out how to, and I'm going, I just didn't have time to sit and play.
Right.
Okay, so this program's not working, so go to a different program or whatever. Anyway.
Right. I ended up using tabs in between my numbers so that I would space them evenly apart. So I don't know if that's helpful to you or not.
Yeah, I was going to try and do that.
Yeah, I put the scale at the top and then I used like 1 tab, 2 tab, you know, and the tabs were set like an inch apart or something. So,
okay.
So it went across the page, but that's what I did with mine. It may or may not work depending on your program and your patience level and how it's all set, but that's what I did to try to space the numbers evenly.
And as you were talking, I remember I teach a class for our school district, and they always have an evaluation at the end that they want us to, that they want the people to fill out. And as you were talking, that popped in my head, and I'm going, you're right. It says, you know, what did you learn? You know, something about the instructors, and you know, how were they? And you rate them 1 to 5 or whatever. And then underneath it, it says, what did they do well? Or you know, what did you learn about this part of the program, and how was this part of the program, and what did you take away from it, or what were some of the specific things that you learned or that you wanted to improve on or whatever. I went, oh, that's exactly what you were talking about.
Right.
Okay, just because you circle 5, why? Give me some specifics as to what, we did well, or what can be improved, or whatever.
Right.
So,
Because as an instructor, it's nice to get back 5s, but if you don't know why, it's like, oh, good, they liked it.
so then you just keep going when actually there is room for improvement, or there's areas that need tweaked, or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's always helpful to get some good feedback, because yeah, we got to do that in my workshop. We each got to present parts of the workshop we'll be teaching, as well as tell our personal stories. And then afterwards, we'd come back and we'd offer our feedback on how we felt it went. And then we got critiqued by everyone else in the room. And, I learned things like even just changing the pitch of my voice, the way I stand, and how wildly I gesticulate sometimes is really distracting to people. And I'm like, yeah, I need to work on that. And, just the way I pace around the room sometimes when I get nervous, just little things that I didn't, I knew, but I didn't really think about, and it was really helpful to be able, and then knowing that the most people that attend our workshop won't be evaluating how wildly we gesticulated or how far we moved or any of those things, but it was really helpful to receive that level of coaching from other people who are also, receiving that coaching. So
Definitely, yeah.
no, yeah, I think feedback and being open to feedback is an important part of being able to, improve our programs. So, and then,
Okay, and then we did what? Appendix F, E?
yeah, Appendix E. So, sorry, were you done with the?
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay, good. I thought so, but I didn't want to jump ahead. Okay, so yeah, Appendix E, the ethics, and
Yes.
ethics are critical when we're working with families because, I think it's important to have those boundaries in place, and the ethics really give us a clear code of boundaries. Like, this is our role, this is their role.
Right. Yes.
Knowing what to do and what is beyond the scope of what we should be doing, I think is really helpful.
Right. I liked what I liked about the Appendix E is how it explained the relational ethics, the principles approach, and the virtue ethics, and how it broke those down into the different things. I the virtue ethics, important characteristics that you yourself have, the caring, the wisdom, the hope, the optimism that you bring to the class as you're trying to teach and help and whatever.
Right, because how do you really teach and help people if you're not emotionally connected to them, if you don't
Exactly, yeah.
have the wisdom? It's interesting. Earlier today, I met with one of my friends, and she's also in the process of being an author and trying to inspire and help people, encourage them towards forgiveness and healing. And she shared an experience she had with, it was a coaching program that she was investigating possibly becoming a part of years and years ago, when she was first starting on her journey of possibly becoming a coach or speaker. And she's like, as they were talking, I just had this vision of somebody like who was bleeding profusely, running around trying to help other people. And, and I guess she wasn't really sure what to make of that, but as we talked about it, we thought about, it's really important as parent educators or as anyone who's going to inspire and lift and lead others, that we take time to heal our wounds, that we take time to heal ourselves. Because, obviously, if we don't have, our own oxygen mask on first, or we haven't stopped the bleeding in our own wounds, or, obviously, if we're hurting, and we don't have the wisdom and the guidance yet to figure out our own lives, how are we going to guide and lead other people? And so it was a very graphic picture that stuck in my mind after our conversation. I'm like, that's true. You know, who wants help from someone who looks like they need more help than you do?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If someone comes to me and they look like a trauma victim, I'm going to want to help them rather than let them try to help me, you know?
Yeah.
And so
I thought that was really interesting to think about. Like you said, you have to be centered. And I think we read it in some of the others where you have to be centered and focused and, like you said, healed yourself if you're going to help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You can't feed somebody on an empty bowl. If you only have an empty bowl, you can't feed anyone.
Right. And you can't give people something you don't have.
Yes.
Exactly.
If your cup is empty, they're not going to drink from it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Very true. Yeah, I hadn't thought about those in detail, but I do like the way that it breaks those down. I haven't seen that before.
You know, and under the relational one is understanding that relationships are foundational, which we talked about.
Right,
and
absolutely.
Have a relationship, a caring relationship with those that you're teaching. You know, it's just like the gospel. It's like if you don't have the Holy Ghost with you when you're teaching, it's not going to carry to them.
Right.
And so in a worldly setting or whatever, you've got to have that caring aura about you and let them know that, so that they know and they feel loved and they feel that you care about them and about their problems. And then that opens up their mind to and their heart to listen to you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the first steps the missionaries do is building trusting relationships.
Yeah.
Because people listen to people they trust. And, you know, they're more likely to let themselves be influenced by someone that they like and trust. And those aren't necessarily the same things, but trust is foundational. It's key to us letting ourselves be influenced by other people.
Yeah.
And I think this whole code of ethics that I went into, we had to sign that in a previous class, I think, before starting the whole.
We did, yeah.
Because I'm like, I know this. I've read all this and I've signed this, and like when we started on the journey of family life education. So
yeah, it was the one. It was the book. It was the one where we actually read the NCRF.
Right. Book. Yeah, the little pamphlet book and
the handbook and stuff, and
right.
You signed it, so we are committed to.
That's true. So we're mandated reporters, so we better learn what that means. So yeah, I'm wanting to really follow up and learn that more about. Yeah, I also thought the case study was interesting with the boy that his dad didn't want him playing in the kitchen. You know, as I thought through that, and I thought, you know, it's a cultural thing, and if we're going to respect the rights of the parents to make their decisions for their children, you know, and obviously we don't want to lie to the dad and say, oh yeah, no, he's not playing with it when he is, you know,
right, yeah,
that's not right. You know. So yeah, I was kind of thinking through all of the things that go with that.
Yeah, it was interesting because I'm going, that's their culture. That's the way they are raised.
Right.
And so to come over here, it's like this absolutely foreign concept to them.
Right.
And we don't understand their culture. So, you know, first thing I thought of was, okay, we both have to understand each other's culture.
Right.
In order to progress anywhere.
Right. And even if we don't completely understand their culture, if we can at least respect their culture.
Yes. Yeah.
And understand, you know, this is a very important belief to them. And he has the right to set those boundaries. Yeah, I'm working on integrating these principles not just with my family life, like teachings that I practice outside, but also within my own family, like with my ex-husband. You know, recognizing and respecting his right to parent has been it's been a hard one for me. And even today, my poor little 10-year-old daughter, I think is starting to go through puberty. She was having quite the roller coaster of mood swings before she left, and she actually had homework because she refused to work for like 2 hours at school, which normally they don't give her homework because they try to keep differentiation between school and home for the special needs kids.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, her moods were all over the place, and she's crying and her stomach is hurting, and I'm like, she's 10, I'm not ready for that. So we had a conversation about, you know, reminding her things we've talked about growing up, and I warned her dad. I'm like, she's having mood swings, she didn't finish her homework, and she may be having cramps, so just be aware.
Yeah.
So, but it broke my heart to go put her in the car, and she's crying, no, I don't want to do homework at Dad's. I don't want to go to Dad's. And, you know, just giving her a hug and a kiss and reminding her, you know, Dad and Jenny love you too. You'll be fine. You can get through your homework. It just broke my heart to put her in the car.
That.
Away. I'm like, oh. But are you leaving? All right. Love you. Have a good night. Okay. You too. Sorry, my husband is leaving for the night, so.
No problem.
But yeah, I think implementing these both in my life, like learning how to co-parent respectfully with my children's father, I think that was a huge breakthrough for me when I had a counselor who clarified respecting him as a person versus respecting him as their father, because I had a lot of issues with respecting him as a person just because of my old baggage associated with our relationship. But once he brought up, he was like, you know, it's kind of like the president of the country. You may have no respect for the individual who's in that office and yet have respect for the office of being, you know, the country's president. And so he's like, you know, you may or may not ever be able to respect him as a person, but he is their father. And if you can respect that role and what that means, you know. And so I had to start there. And then eventually I've moved more and more towards having more respect for him as a person too, as I learn more and as I grow and as I change my paradigm. But
Not easy.
Not easy. But an important practice for being able to apply this to other people as well.
Yeah.
You know, recognizing them as individuals first and all of their rights and respecting their beliefs, and recognizing that the way I look at the world is not the way everyone else sees it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I get that it's kind of like a duh statement, but until someone points it out, a lot of times we just say, well, that's how the world is. Everyone thinks that. Oh, wait, no, they don't. You know, so anyway, sorry.
Oh, no.
Any other thoughts that you had on the ethics?
I don't think so. I'm just looking over some of my outline. Both of the things we read, the professional ethics and practice by Glenn Palm and the Appendix A, kind of talked about the same things.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of went hand in hand as they, you know, the caring, the wisdom, the hope, the considering the relationship and the virtues that you have and they have, and yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, I did like, the spirit of aspiration ethics versus mandatory ethics.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Obviously, it's important that there's mandatory ethics when there's things like, mandated reporting. But I think, having aspiration ethics is like wanting to become better in that growth and that personal development that we do to
Mm-hmm.
make ourselves better and better able to be healthy facilitators for other people. So, yeah.
Yeah, those were interesting.
Right,
know?
like, even like the dispositions to do the right thing for the right reasons.
Right. Yes.
But it helps us build our integrity and our ability to have other people trust us if they can see that, our intentions are pure and we're not trying to manipulate them. That was another thing we learned at the workshop. There are all sorts of different techniques and manipulations and psychological things you can do to manipulate an audience and get them to buy and do all of these things. And they were like, we got to a point where, we knew all the tools and the tricks and the manipulation, but we weren't comfortable with the way they were being used to sell people things they didn't need or they didn't want, or, and they're like, so we stopped, because it wasn't serving them. And ultimately, we didn't feel good about ourselves when we were doing that. So being aware of what some of those triggers are and how they influence people, then using them only to influence people to make decisions in their own best interest, as opposed to just doing it to get the sale. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's an interesting dichotomy, but it's it's crazy how manipulated we can be when people really understand the psychology, and we're so vulnerable to so many things. And so I think but people pick up on it subconsciously. They know that they're being manipulated. And so, yeah, really bringing it back down to being comfortable with ourselves and with other people and not having to resort to manipulating others.
Right. Yeah. And I suppose that you probably wouldn't even know, unless you were taught what they were, you wouldn't even know you were using them most of the time.
Right. Well, and it was simple things like standing in a certain part of the stage when you tell sadder stories and not standing in the same spot when you're trying to convince them to buy. And, things like that I'm like, I had no clue. I was like, but as we learned these different things more for our knowledge than to manipulate other people. But it's like, holy cow, they didn't teach us to be manipulative, but they taught us to just be aware of certain things that go with selling from the stage and things like that. So
yeah.
I was like, wow, that's incredible to me that it can be that complicated. I don't know. I'm more inclined to go with their connect with people, offer them things that are of value to them, and go from there with a heart to help people. So
Yes, and that sounds like me. I could never do like Tupperware or anything or anything, because I'm going, I can't afford it. Why would I sell something that I know I can't afford and try to get people to buy?
Right.
Never, ever get around that part.
Right, exactly.
Yes, yeah. This is really super expensive and I can't afford this. So, but I want you to do it.
Right. Somehow it doesn't have a very good ring to it. It doesn't. Yes. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Not that I would actually say that out loud, but I'm thinking, which would probably come across that way too. So.
Wait, was that my outside voice? No. But we do totally broadcast our thoughts and feelings, though. So if that's what we're thinking, chances are pretty good they at least have an inkling that something's off or something's not quite right.
Right.
So, all right. So the last part was boundaries between parent and family education and family therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And
You know,
I,
it's interesting when I read, have you read it?
I did read through all of the first article and part of the second article, and I'm still going to finish reading the second article. But
Well, what I thought was interesting is that, you know, you read the first article and you're thinking, wow, okay. Then you read the second article and it refutes everything. And you're going, wait, what?
I don't think I've got quite that far. But
Here. Well, they take his article and completely tear it apart.
huh? Okay.
So
So,
you-
what do they propose an alternative for how?
Right, they do.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So you know how he talked about the levels, you know, the 5 different levels,
Right.
and how we are to be, where we are kind of in level 3, and
Right.
we're, you know, mostly level 3, 2, level 3 really.
Right.
Maybe step a tiny bit into level 4, but that's pretty much the therapy.
Yeah.
Level 5, you don't ever touch,
Right.
type of a thing.
Mine delve more into 3 and 4 just because I'm so specialized and specific in what I'm doing.
Right.
But the only reason that I'm comfortable with doing that is because I've had years of support groups and years of experience, not as the facilitator, but as a participant in a lot of those things. But even there, I'm like, I want to be really careful that I understand what that line is.
Right.
Because I'm dealing with such emotional topics that I can see the potential for oversharing or for things like that. And so I do want to be careful that I want to study this more carefully too, so that I'm sure that I'm not getting into areas where I'm doing more than I should do. So,
Right, yeah. So the level 3, you know, is the personal experiences that you teach. You pull the personal experiences from them. You create the supportive group environment, the group problem solving, and you deal with normal stress, but not the traumatic experiences. You have good awareness of your own emotional responses in order to connect with the people. And it says where the FEL should completely focus their energy. One of the things he talks about that is that he only wants you to go into parenting. He doesn't want you to go into marriage or anything like that.
yeah, I saw that. I thought that was interesting.
Right. And so I'm going, oh, okay.
I've never seen that before, but yeah.
You know, and then level 4 is working with families that have special needs, assessing the problem and intervening and dealing with the parents of issues, the parenting issues. Oh, that's right. He said deal only with parenting issues.
Right.
And this is the exception of the rule and not what FELs actually teach. So it was interesting and stuff. So then when you get into the other one, the domain or the reconceptualizing the domain, they actually break it down into what an FEL looks like, what a family therapist looks like, and what FCM, family
Case management.
case management, yes.
I'm kind of scanning through it now, so.
Right. So it talks about, you know, so and it breaks it down into why, what, who, when, and how.
Okay.
So that was interesting how they did that. So like for why do the FELs teach? They want strong, healthy families. They want to help families build knowledge and skills, where a family therapist help families repair relationships and functioning. And the FCM helps families comply with the legal and policy systems that locate resources.
Okay.
So it kind of breaks it completely, you know, okay, so in this area, that looks like this in these 3 different, or these 3 different jobs or whatever. call them.
Right. So
Or the-
case management would be like if you get like you report an abuse case and you have, or somebody goes through a court system or something and they get assigned I'm thinking like DFS or something like that.
Right.
Is
Yeah,
that-
that's what a case manager is, where they, and it talks about where most of the case management is mandated.
Right,
They get all the mandated stuff from the courts.
right. So it's like court ordered. Right,
And they have to set up the program, make sure they're in a program. They account for them being in a that kind of stuff.
right.
So, but yeah. So, it was interesting how they broke it down. They broke it down into the time, which is or when we would deal with the present, the here and now, projecting towards the future. The
Mhm.
family therapist works from the past and the past experiences, and the FCM works on current crises and needs. So what do they need today?
Right.
You know,
That's an important distinction.
they're in a crisis right now.
Right. I can really see that. I like the breakdown.
Yeah, so
Okay, so with family life education, we're not really going into what happened in the past and all this. It's not a therapy session, obviously.
right.
It's more like, this is what you're needing. This is some ideas of what to try. Yeah, and going forward. That makes a lot of sense.
So it also talked about, let's see, where is it? Okay, so in the timing also, it talks about, there's a chart that kind of shows this, but it talks about how the family life educator does the primary and secondary, and so they broke it into primary and secondary, and the therapist does secondary and the tertiary. Is that how you say that word? And the FCM does just tertiary. But the primary, so our job is basically to protect healthy families from experiencing harm before it occurs. And the secondary goes into occurs after the problem, and conflicts or serious risk factors have already been identified, and the goal is to slow or halt the process of the program in its earliest stages and prevent them from harm. So then the therapist takes it from there. That's kind of part of the therapist also, but they take it further and focus on helping people manage complicated chronic long-term problems and repair the damage. And the goal is to prevent further harm and restore and maximize it.
Right.
And maximize the quality of life. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at those now. I like the way it breaks down the timetables too.
Mm-hmm. And at the very end, it actually has a chart of all of it. So you can see it all in a chart.
Okay.
It's like the last page before the reference. So.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of looking at that too. Yeah.
But I really like the way they broke it apart. But also, okay, but there are times where they cross over and they, we're all working together.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was interesting.
Right.
But reading through it, and I can see going back and reading it several times to get a clearer picture as to what your role is as a family life educator.
Right.
And why is it important to even have a family life educator? Why not just send them all to therapy?
Right.
But if we are to teach them and prevent the problems, they don't ever have to get to the therapist.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people won't go to a therapist
Right.
They have stigmas or things attached to that in their mind, and I think you can reach more people. I mean, just
Right.
supply and demand wise, you know, the therapists only have so many hours available as, and when they're meeting one-on-one, I mean, you can have some really powerful experiences in a group of individuals
Right. Yeah.
while still being really respectful of everyone and laughing and learning together. And a lot of times you'll learn from other people's questions and other things that happen with that too. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things they talked about, how we get to have them in groups, and you have the group support and the knowledge from the group, whereas the therapist, you know, and you can meet anywhere, in a school, in a church, in a community center, in a, you know, you're meeting everywhere.
mhm.
Whereas the therapist meets in their office one-on-one, like you said, and so it's just individual, and the case management's the same thing. They may come to the house or go to, you know, a mental institution or a retirement institution or something like that, and do it one-on-one. They may have family members there to help, but it's more individualized rather than the whole community coming together and working together, which we
Right,
get to do.
right. Yeah, I think it's an important distinction, especially like being aware of the mental health of the people that we're serving. We definitely don't want to do anything that would put them in a worse place, you know, after they've come. I guess it kind of comes back to the whole, you know, kind of like doctors take the oath, you know, to first do no harm.
Right.
You know? And so we want to make sure that we're not. I thought it was interesting in the other article that I read that it talked about even when people are sharing voluntarily, it's our responsible to maybe cut off or protect them from oversharing in a vulnerable moment.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, probably because it stood out to me just because I could see that being something that could happen. And so I guess that's when you have to just kind of use your best judgment. Obviously, if someone's having a huge breakdown, you can kind of pull them back and rein them in. And actually, I was thinking about this because I kind of experienced being on the receiving end of that to a certain degree with our facilitator at the workshop I was doing. He invited us to bring personal problems into it and to try to solve it. And I was being generic. I wasn't going into all of, I was trying to stick with the processes that was happening and the patterns that were happening versus the specific details, just because I didn't want everyone to get sucked into the details and get lost in the story. But I was getting really into it to the point that we were almost running away with everyone's time. And the facilitator was very good. He brought it back and he was like, you know, I can see that this is really important to you. We've really struck a nerve. You know, I want to process this through with you, but in respect of, you know, the time and the other material I want to cover, you know, could we set up a time to maybe process this through later on?
Oh, how neat.
You know, and we never did quite make that fit, but we made several attempts and we talked it through to the point where I was okay with it. But he did a really good job of stopping and connecting with me and saying, you know, I see you. I see that this is really important for you to deal with. However, you know, could you pull it back in and, you know, in the interest of letting everyone learn the rest of the material I have, and maybe I can talk to you one-on-one on a break or something. So I could see the potential for doing something like that as a facilitator. If you see that someone's getting really emotional or having a really hard time, you might just validate, you know, this has obviously struck a real nerve with you. This is really important to you. And I want you to have time to process it. However, you know, in light of being respectful of everyone's time and your privacy, you know, maybe that would be better handled on a break or with the therapist, or, you know, how, whatever the appropriate thing for them to get support, you know. So I was just like, that was so cool. I really appreciated the way that he handled it. And I'm like, I'm going to use that. If I get at a point where somebody has kind of hijacked the conversation, and it's going a way that could potentially, not only potentially be embarrassing to them, but maybe not as helpful to them and not helpful to the other people in the room, and then it's our responsibility to kind of see that and bring everything back. And so it's interesting how much power and influence we have, and how respectful we have to be of how much influence we can have on the people that we teach. So, and I think for me, this was coming back to understanding that, how powerful that role is, and really being respectful and using good ethics to, you know, make sure that we're not trying to provide services that we're not prepared to handle.
And that's one of the ethics that we signed, is that we,
Exactly.
oh, what is it? I can only find half of it, and I don't know what happened to the other half of it. Talks about how, it talked about how we recognize the power and influence that we have. And, you know, consciously recognize that we can have, we actually have this power to help, or we could turn it completely bad.
Right.
And I can't find it. I'm going, I can't.
I'm looking now to see if I can find it. I found the one that's, I'll be aware of the boundaries of our practice and know when and how to use other community resources for the benefit of family members. So, I mean, I think that that's an important part of knowing what some of the other resources are that we can refer people to.
Right, yeah, I can't remember if it's in section 1 or section 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to look and see.
It was right here. What happened? I don't know what I did with it.
One of those that, you know, if we don't find it now, you'll find it.
Oh, yeah. You will find it. Because I remember actually using that in one of the
right.
In one of the cases.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what I did with it.
There is one that's like, I will define our role as parent and family life educators and practice within our level of competence. I don't think that's the one you're describing, though.
Oh, it's number 1 on relations with families and parents and family.
The impact and power we have on parents and family. Yeah, scanning everything else.
It's only like number 1.
When all else fails, go back to the beginning, right? Read the
Oh dear.
Oh goodness! Wow, I scanned right over it. I don't know why, but yeah, you're right. Impact and power we have. Very important. Okay, well, I think that's a pretty good discussion of everything.
I think so.
So hopefully things are moving forward with your workshop. and
Yes.
so.
So did I understand this is the last time we do this?
I think it might be. I'm not sure if there's a week 12. I didn't look, honestly.
Is this week 8?
This is
No,
week
9.
9
This
in
is
this
week 9.
class.
Oh yeah, that's,
It may or may not correlate with your other classes.
I know.
Especially if you're on iLearn too.
On I learned 3 in this class. It's 9. Everybody else it's 8, and I'm just going.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
We're coming down to the end.
Right. Well, yeah.
The downhill slide.
Yeah, right. We're getting to the final stretch, so we'll make it. It's just
Yes. Yeah, I think she said. I think I remember her saying that this is the last one.
okay. It wouldn't surprise me, but I haven't looked at. So I think it was 3, 6, and 9. So
Yeah.
if not, we'll email each other and we'll figure it out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, and hopefully Renee will be able to post a video. I don't look into it on Sundays, so I may be able to check in Saturday night, but
Right, yeah. I know the last time I checked it, I even checked it like midway through Sunday to see, and I didn't see it, and then I forgot all about it. So I
right.
didn't see the last one. I'm going, oh no.
You might have posted it something like midnight, Sunday night, but by that point, I don't
Yeah.
know. So, but I will keep an eye out, and hopefully we'll see it, and we'll go
Yes.
from
Yeah.
there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And